I'd like to call to order this meeting. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the little quick technical difficulty there. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Peabody City Council Finance Committee. Sitting as the Committee of the Whole, this is a continuation of a recessed meeting from Tuesday, June 18th, where we completed the review of the city side of the fiscal 2025 budget and also reviewed the enterprise funds. Tonight, the focus will be on the education side of the budget. We also have a few other residual matters to clear up before the end of the fiscal year, but we will do those if time permits. I'd like to thank Councilor Gamache for stepping in for me the other night when I needed to leave abruptly. So thank you for that, Councilor. Also, would like to acknowledge two school committee members that are here this evening, John Swanson and Joe Amico. Thank you for being here, and councilors, please note they're, I would assume, available to answer any questions you might have as we delve into this. I would note that all councilors present this evening, with the exception of Councilor Manning Martin, I'm under the impression she may join us later. And with that, Dr. Vidala.
that's going in to make these cuts, and I know how challenging it is, and I appreciate all the hard work that you and the school committee have done on this.
Thank you, Councilor Welton. Councilor Rossignol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Dr. Vidala, thank you very much for your presentation. Going through this, is the plan for the center school next year to be completely mothballed and to be renovated? Is that the plan this upcoming year? Thank you. So on page 1 where it says 130 students will be there, you're talking about the annex and you're talking about the integrated preschool. Thank you. That answers my part of my next question regarding the center school. There was 2 lines in there that puzzled me. Number 1 was the clerical position, but I think you've answered that where the annex is going to be there. You're going to need somebody as the secretary or somebody that's going to be overseeing the building. The other one that I didn't necessarily understand is the equipment line, which was for $100,000. Could you just explain that, please? Thank you. Thank you very much. If I may, Mr. Chairman, on page 6, 9, 12, and 10, there's a reduction in special education paras. Now, with the center school being closed and students moving from the center to the south, I'm presuming, and to the Welch would be my guess, predominantly, wouldn't you think that there would be a need for increased aids, or is there a model change? Or could you just explain the rationale behind that? And I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, so thank you. So each program, it depends on where it is. There were a number of paraprofessionals that will be paid out of different revolving accounts, so we try to offset that. We're not looking to necessarily reduce any positions. We were trying to find other funding sources for them. We were able to bring all the paras back last year in FY24. You may remember in 23 we spent a lot of money in ESSER on paraprofessionals because that was an approved expenditure. We moved them all back onto the appropriated budget for this year, and we were able to continue with that. Any of those reductions you'll see will be paid out of, so for example, preschool, we're paying for 8 paras out of the preschool revolving account because it generates money, and we were able to offset the budget a little bit that way. So those reductions that you see are not people, let's say, necessarily losing their job, it's just not funded out of this budget.
Not that, through the chair, not that I'm looking at reduction in personnel. I just want to make sure services aren't being reduced.
Yeah, it's a great question, and we'll be able to maintain the service.
Perfect. Thank you very much. There's also reduction of a guidance counselor at the Carroll School. Could you just explain that as well?
Yeah. So that was through attrition. That was through a resignation. We are able to identify other funding for that as well. That was something that in one of the meetings with the school committee that was really identified as a priority position. So that position, it's posted right now. So it is coming back. It's just not able to be funded out of this within the number that we have, not able to be funded here, but able to be funded through another source.
Okay, so again, my main goal when I look at cuts is to make sure services aren't being lost. So through attrition, and I completely understand you're looking for cost savings, high out, low in, you're going to have some cost savings. But I just want to make sure services are not being changed, modified, altered, or reduced.
Yep, absolutely. So we're doing a lot of that this year. The budget is very tight, so we had to make some tough decisions. But our goal is to provide the same services or enhanced services next year, and we'll have to utilize some revolving accounts and some grant funding in order to do that, but we're able to bring back those services.
Thank you. I just have a couple more, Mr. Chairman, and then I'll yield to my counterparts. On page 18, I can find what I'm looking for here.
So staff development?
Actually, under the performing arts.
Performing arts, sorry.
If you look at the equipment for the stage, that has gone down by $5,000. And I know that that's a trivial or a very minute or small dollar amount, but if we're looking at the price of materials, they have not gone down, they've gone up. So I just, again, my focus looking at this budget is to make sure that direct student opportunity, direct student interaction is not really being modified. And I know with the performing arts that if you're looking at buying materials, doing a performance, that takes a significant amount of time, energy, and cost. And to see a reduction in that, could you just explain that for me? Thank
Sure.
you.
And so if you look at, it's line 15014, which is the equipment line. 2 years ago, it was 7,500. Last year, there was a specific increase to 22,500.
Sorry, the line right below that.
Below
Dr.
that?
Vidal.
Sure. There's a reduction in both, so I can speak to both. So for example, that first one, you saw the spike up to 22.5 and then back down. That was because there was specific work that needed to be done in the auditorium that Mr. Simmons had identified, and the school committee was able to identify the $15,000 to put that in. That work has now been completed and is not necessary, so that's why it came back out, and so there's a $15,000 cost savings there. And then the art and the stage, very similar, 2 years in a row, we were able to do some work on the stage. There was some work on the hatch and then some work on the stage, and now that work is completed, we were able to go back to what was basically FY22 funding, which is to be able to maintain. But those were specific items that were brought to us and brought to the committee over the past 2 years and said, can we do this year? And the committee was able to fund it, and now those have been taken out because the work has been completed.
Thank you very much. 2 more and then I'm finished, and I will pass that on to my colleagues. On page 25, it shows a reduction of an assistant superintendent. To my knowledge, at least following the school committee, there was no reduction in superintendent. So is this another funding source change? It is line item, let me just make sure I get the right one. No, there's a lot of zeros on this thing. 6th one down on page 25.
I see that. Yeah, our plan is to just have a different funding source and be able to utilize the same level of service that we have this year.
Thank you. Lastly, regarding the technology and the remote learning, are those 5 FTEs full-time positions? And can you just give me a snapshot overview of your envision of remote learning moving into the 24-25 year?
Absolutely. So we started this program coming off of COVID. We've seen a really strong increase in students over the years. I do believe it benefits mostly the middle and high school students. We do have a small group of elementary students that started in kindergarten and have been working their way up. So right now we're a 3 to 5 elementary program and 3 to 12 in the school. So we have 1 elementary teacher That's one of the FTEs. We have one middle school teacher that services about 20 students, and then we have the remaining 3 service the 100 high school students. So we have about 100 at the high school, and they're able to have the different classrooms and things like that. I do see this would probably become a 6 to 12 program, but I think that there's a small need at the middle school, and it's been very effective at the high school in terms of dropout prevention and graduation. So for example, this year they graduated 22 students.
So I'm sorry, through the chair, do you envision it just becoming a high school remote learning program after 2024-25?
I think eventually we would see 6 to 12. I do think that there's a need for the middle school. I think there are some students that have some challenges in middle school that prevent them, with school phobia, or prevent them from learning in the current in-person setting. And so we have about 20 kids on a year-to-year basis that benefit at the middle school level. But primarily it would be a high school program moving forward.
Thank you. And then lastly, and I appreciate your presentation. I know some of the calculated risks are pretty extensive, I'll say. I know at the last school committee meeting that I watched and paid attention to, there were 2 positions that were cut and then brought back because of some, I'll say, risky calculations. And I was on the school committee, and I appreciate what the school committee does. I think they do a fantastic job. I think you do a fantastic job. So I'm not going to criticize them whatsoever, or you for that matter. But what I don't want to see is that halfway through the year, those numbers didn't actually come to fruition, and then you'll be coming to us for a supplemental. I know that that's difficult to project, but if we start to head in that direction, one of the things that I would at least like to see is the director of the Teaching and Learning STEM and the director of Teaching and Learning Humanities, those 2 last positions that kind of ended up on the cutting room floor but then got brought back. I would like to see those 2 positions released if you're noticing that you're not going to be able to meet the demands that you put on yourself to come up with the budget that we have before us. I'm just kind of looking into the future and seeing some of these numbers, and some of them I completely understand, and some of them I'm a little bit nervous with. So just food for thought.
Sure. And I'd be happy to respond. Just for clarity purposes, those 2 positions were not a calculated risk. Okay. There was clear funding. We added $50,000 to the budget from what was proposed, and we identified funding from Passos Avante to offset utilities that would pay for that. So those were not a calculated risk. Very important positions that are critical to the work that we do. I've mentioned this prior. We have a wonderful performing arts department that won a state championship 2 years in a row, and we have a performing arts director. Yep. We've won 11 Northeast Conference titles in athletics. We have an athletics director. And our focus needs to be teaching and learning. So I can't support cutting the math director or the humanities director. I think they're critical positions, and we're doing great things. We will see that come to fruition in the coming years. You will see our MCAS scores go up. I can guarantee that with the work that we're doing supporting teachers. The calculated risks that we took are in health insurance, which is a risk, right? Health insurance is going up. We took calculated risk in transportation. We took a calculated risk in out-of-district tuition. So we will provide updates regularly about those 3 accounts, but those are the big ones where the risks are.
Correct. What I meant was, because of those risks you took, you were able to save those 2 positions. That's what my thought behind my statement was.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Rossignol. I realize other councilors have questions. We have a request from IT to take a quick recess. We're getting some feedback on some of the microphones, and they need a moment to reboot. Councilor Welton and others, please don't go far. This is going to be very brief. So we are in a 1-minute recess.
Hello? Hello?
Recording in progress.
Councilors, we're back in session. Councilor Turco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Doctor, for the presentation. Doc, if you could, because I'm guilty of this myself, I use the word cuts constantly. And, you know, we've heard the word cuts across the board for the last couple of months. But then, you know, I had an epiphany the other day. According to our budget, the education budget went up $5 million from last year. So explain to me how we're looking at it kind of as cuts from your perspective as a superintendent, and how you would see this and explain it to the public. Because, again, we use the word cuts, but it's really not a cut. Am I correct in that? It's just less than you'd hoped for? Okay, because the reason I asked is because on Tuesday I had said to the mayor that, you know, one of I don't per se have an issue with the budget as a whole. I have an issue with cutting education, because, you know, I think that it's should be our number one priority. And, you know, as I said to you a few weeks back, I saw the pain, you know, that you and the school committee went through that second round, including the mayor, through that second round of cuts. And again, I'm referring to them as cuts. I don't, you know, for lack of a better term. I don't know whether today there doesn't seem to be much opposition on your side. You seem to be okay with this. You seem to be happy with the number that you're given here. Is that just because you've resolved to the fact that you can't get any more, or I don't mean to put you on the spot, Doc. I just, I guess I want to fight for you. I really wish we could give you some more money, but everybody seems to be content.
I feel good about that, and a little nervous about some of the other budget numbers, but I do feel good about the services that we're going to provide next year.
Thank you, Doctor. And Councilor Rosnell already touched on it, but the assumptions, $546,228 for insurance. Was that just for the 11 positions that weren't added to the budget? Because I can't figure out the math on that one.
That was just to balance the budget. That was a calculated risk to balance the budget. We did reduce some positions, and then we took a risk. It's exactly what it is. It's a risk. The health insurance is a little bit lower than we had originally budgeted for, but we'll do everything we can to identify other funding sources and try to bring this budget in balanced as we have done for the past 4 years.
Right, and I'd like to maintain some confidence in that, but I'm not confident that we're going to be in a better position next fiscal year than we are this fiscal year. And I honestly don't believe that there's any way that you can't come to us for a supplementary with numbers as they are. So with that, I'll lead into the $104 a day for the migrant population. Have you received that money yet, or will you? You've already received it?
We've received some of it. So there's 3 separate payments. We've received 2 payments so far, and we've spent some of the money. We are able to bring some money forward next year. So some of those positions that have moved out of the appropriated budget will be moved to that for 1 year, and so we'll be able to fund them through the 104. So some ELL teachers, some counselors, those types of positions are an allowable expenditure, especially at the McCarthy School, which has received a number of students. We'll be paying for an ELL teacher from the Higgins out of that money, and a counselor at the high school from that money. So it's one-time money. We'll have it through next year. These positions are positions that are in the budget, and they're not in the appropriated budget, but it's something that we'll have to bring back next year. But each year different things come up to us, and we have to make the decisions. We wanted to make sure that this budget was balanced and that we came in underneath. And I think the City Council always looks at, we'd love to give more money, and that means raising taxes. And so we have to figure out what the appetite is for that. We have to come back for an additional appropriation, what that looks like. We'll do everything we can not to do that. But we'll provide monthly updates. I think that was one of the things that we said to the school committee is, knowing that we're taking some risks, we will provide monthly updates so everyone is well aware of where we're trending, how we're spending, and things like that. So, for example, we spent more money this year than budgeted in out-of-district tuitions because the private schools went up 14%, and our circuit breaker money won't come in until next year. So that's a funding source that we'll have additional money next year to offset that, but this year we were in a deficit, so we applied for extraordinary relief and received, I can give a lot of credit to Mr. Rippin and Ms. Crompton, my special ed director for identifying those costs, applying for that grant money from the state, and we got that this year, so we'll be able to spend that on this year's budget. So we will do everything we can to identify, if we overspend, we'll be able to identify areas to offset that, which is what we did this year. We're going to come in balanced, even though we spent more money in one account than we thought we were, because we identified a different funding source. So we have to do things like that creatively and working with the state. We have a great relationship with the state, and we'll keep doing that as best we can. But I think with some of the risks that we're taking, we'll have to provide those monthly updates and let the counselors know where we're at and the committee know where we're at.
Thank you, Doctor. You mentioned tax increases in our proposed budget. It's possibly $398 per house for average household. So what confuses me in that is that, and I guess this is a question for the mayor. So we're at $398 for, and then to go to $440 and give the school committee an extra $1 million is just beyond reproach to do that. I mean, I'm confused by that a little bit. Whereas we're at four. Listen, nobody wants to raise taxes. I know you don't. I know I don't. We'd love to limit it as much as we can, but I don't choose to limit it on the backs of education. So I'm confused as to what was the stopping point. So, we're at $398. Why did it hurt you so much to go to $440?
Well, 398 is not a real number. I think there's a variety of ways that the taxes could come. It could again range from 200 to 500 depending on the commercial versus the residential values. Using one scenario of a residential increase of 5% and a commercial increase of 1%, it could be a $398 tax bill or additional tax to each homeowner. But again, that's a very fluid number. We will not know about that number until November, December. I just went forward with the number I thought was right and made that decision, and I'm comfortable with it.
Okay. Yeah. My question is more geared to the fact that I'm hoping that it's actually lower than the 398, which would give us a little bit more leeway to actually help out on the school side. But I think we're beyond that point. Again, it's just a personal thing for me with education. On that note, Doc, I'll move on to some discussions we had on Tuesday night regarding this assistant auditor position that is going to be half funded by the school department, half funded by the city, and that's going to come out of a revolving account for cafeteria. That's good for you. That seems to be legal and on the up and up, that we can actually
Yes.
use that money on that side.
Yes. So, as you know, and from the discussion on Tuesday, that account had operated in a deficit for many years, and we've taken the appropriate steps. And now that there's been some things that have helped out, and now that account is profitable and we can reinvest in the program, we've really increased the amount of participation that we've had in our lunch program. We've also expanded the summer foods program, which used to be 1 day a week, is now 5 days a week. And so with all of those investments that we're making back in, having the assistant auditor do some work within the cafeteria fund and be able to audit our accounts before they go out for public audit, I think would be very helpful. And since that person would be working to review our expenditures and to be able to audit that account and some other accounts, that would be an allowable cost.
Thank you. And I think my last question is going to be regarding, actually it'd be my second to last question. The budget that we have for schools is $100,551,061. So that would include the budget that you're tonight. And when I say the budget that we have, the one in the city budget we heard
The education,
Tuesday night.
the total education,
Yeah, so that includes nurses, Essex Techs, and facilities?
that includes the Essex Tech.
Just Essex Tech as part of that. And then we still pick up the tab for the custodians on your side, all the custodians on the school side? No?
Well, next year we're proposing 2 of them to be in that revolving account from the cafeteria fund.
Okay. So
But the rest of them would be in the facilities budget on the city side that was heard on Tuesday.
all right, so we consolidated facilities, and now we're going to separate facilities by just 2 positions? Again,
I mean, to my knowledge, we're just looking to offset the city's budget through this account, because those positions, so if you look at the Higgins, for example, they have a number of custodians, and a big part of the day is the cafeteria, cleaning, doing the trash, making sure that they do that. So that is an allowable expense. We were never able to do that because the fund wasn't sustainable. Now that it is, we can reinvest in the program. Part of that program is the trash and the cleanup and the preparation. And so one custodian at the Higgins can be funded through that account, which is a nice opportunity to have because it's reinvesting in the program. And it's something that was on the city's back before that doesn't have to be anymore. And so we can offset that account.
Okay, and my last question, and I really hope to not be offensive to you at all, because as I said, I'll never take away from you that you care about education, you care about what you do. I don't think anybody could ever say that, but to Councilor Rossignol's point, it seems like the administration is a little top-heavy from when I got on the council. It seems like you've added a few assistant superintendent's positions, you've added assistant principals in all the schools, even some schools that have, a very small population of students. It's a number of 7 or 8 executive level positions, I'll call them. And you've maintained that you'll see the fruits of that at some point. Some of those positions have already been in effect. And one of the things that I heard during a early school committee meeting, I think it was our presentation for Ms. Randall, where she said that 50% of the freshman class was failing at least one of the 4 major subjects. And that nobody seemed to be alarmed by that. I think a statement was actually made that they weren't alarmed by it. I was alarmed by it. Shouldn't we see some of the fruits of those labors already? And that seems to be, again, to me, I'm not in education, seems to be a very alarming fact. So have these positions helped? Where are we seeing it now? Because they've been in for a little while now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. It's an important question. And I think that there's a little bit of a misunderstanding around the number of administrators that we have in this district. And I can go back and I can show everybody there are less administrators today than there were the day I was hired. So we have reduced the number of administrators, specifically in Unit B, from the day I was hired. We have repurposed positions and made them more useful. For example, we used to have a PLA director. We don't have that position anymore. That was a big salary that only oversaw 30 kids. And so now we are able to maintain that program through a lead teacher who's a Unit A position, and we repurpose that position to a STEM director that focuses on science and technology for all 6,000 kids. And so we've been able to, with that position, we've been able to bring in new math curriculum this year, new science curriculum at the middle school, and we're improving our resources and our support for teachers. There have been positions that have been completely eliminated and reduced at the administrative level. We've always had assistant principals at the elementary level, so those were not, I didn't add any of those. They've always been there. What we've done is we've pulled them out of the classroom so they can be more effective. In years past, they were paid an administrative salary to teach a class, and if they needed to respond to an event, they left their class unattended, or they had to open the door and someone had to cover their class, and that wasn't good for kids. So we pulled them out of the classroom, and some of the things that we're seeing is, when I arrived, we had 8 elementary schools, and 7 of the 8 principals were hired from outside the district, and it takes time and energy and money to onboard those people. I've hired 3 elementary principals. They're all from within. And it's because we have assistant principals that have built their leadership capacity and are able to support teachers, and they hit the ground running. And you'll see in each of those 3 schools, their star reading and math scores have accelerated because they know our program. And now all the elementary assistant principals that I've hired and all the middle school assistant principals that I've hired have all been from within. So we're building that leadership capacity and we're strengthening our bench, but we're doing so by adding more things to the administrative responsibility and the support that they provide, and we're eliminating positions that were sort of one-off positions that maybe didn't benefit the entire district. So when I hear that we're top-heavy, if we look at where we are compared to the rest of the state, we only have 3% of our salaries going to administration, which is less than anyone on the North Shore. So we spend less money on administration than any district on the North Shore. And we do so because we have strategically built our organization so that we're maximizing what all of these positions do, and we're adding to that. And so we don't have an administrator in charge of 30 kids anymore. we're spreading the wealth, but we're doing so strategically. And, you know, I think we're doing some really good things, and I'm glad that we're bringing the team back, because I do think, you know, for example, have we seen the fruits of the labor? Every school last year, chronic absenteeism went down. So we've gone from 45% chronically absent at the high school to less than 20.
I missed that. Every school did what last year?
Chronic absenteeism, which is, you know, during COVID, ran rampant. 45% of the high school was absent 10% or more. Now we're under 20%. And so across the district, every single school has cut their chronic absenteeism in half. So more kids are coming to school because we have these positions that are designed to support kids, support teachers, to bring kids in. And so, you know, we've done a number of those things. And so step one is get the kids in. Step two is improve the curriculum resources that we have, and you'll start to see those. And we're seeing it in the testing that the kids are doing in school through our star reading and math, and we're going to start seeing it on MCAS, but we're already seeing it in terms of the kids are coming to school, discipline referrals are down, you know, we're doing a lot better things. Those have to happen first. We're supporting our kids by investing in counseling and things like that, and we will see these huge increases in the coming years. And, you know, it's been a very systematic way of building, but we are seeing the fruits of the labor already. And I think the MCAS is the big one that we want to see, because that's what gets reported out publicly. But when they do that, our graduation rate is up, our dropout rate is down, and, you know, you'll start to see those scores continue to go up.
Thank you, Doc, and those are all great numbers, and I really appreciate the explanation on the assistant principal, because it does make perfect sense to me, the way you said it. But again, just to go back to, you know, 50% of the freshman class is failing at least one subject. How do we correct that with the administrators that you've put forward and said to Councilor Rosignol that, you know, you'll see these improvements? That again, I don't know how people aren't concerned about that, but that is extremely, it's bothered me since it was said that, you know, the basis of education, 4 major subjects, that half of our kids are failing one of those subjects. It just doesn't make sense to me.
And the majority of those kids were failing due to attendance. And so that number was from last school year, not this school year. So when that was presented, those numbers were released from last school year. And so we're still seeing a little bit of the after effects of COVID, but the big piece of that was attendance. Most of them are failing due to attendance. And so they're unable to make up the work and things like that because they're not in, and we have an attendance policy. They've taken huge steps to improve that, and we're seeing definitely the fruits of that labor. This year's number will be less than 50%. 50% is not acceptable, and we want to make sure that we address that. But you'll see each year it's going to get better and better and better until we bring that number significantly down. But that was last year. It was Ms. Randall's first year as the principal. She's identified that as a goal for hers and for her team, and attendance has improved, and now academics will. So you got to get them there first. And attendance is improved, and we will see the academics improve. But that number is not acceptable, and we will do better.
Thank you, Doc. I appreciate that. And I did forget to touch on, I mentioned the 104 a day. Are there any other funding sources for the migrant population for education that may be coming in that we are kind of looking forward to or hoping for?
So we're hopeful that we're going to see some kids this year coming into kindergarten that weren't there last year. And so we are hopeful, and the word that we're getting from the state is at least for the first part of the school year, we should see an increase in funding. Hopefully it's that 104 a day for all the students who are new to our district. And if it is, then that's money that we weren't expecting and that we haven't budgeted for, so that will help some of those risks that we're taking. And there were some other funding sources, and there's some funding sources for summer programming and wraparound services. So we are very close with the state, and, you know, anytime that there's an opportunity for us to apply for funding, we do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Turco. Other councilors. Councilor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Dr. Vidala, for the presentation and for doing what you do for the city of Peabody. Appreciate it. Just a quick question, Doc. Can you tell me the ethnic breakdown of all our population, what we have for diverse groups, and please? It's probably in your handout, but I'd like to hear it from you instead.
Thank you for those kind words, Councilor Gould. And yes, if you give me 1 second, I can give you that breakdown. I apologize. Okay, so out of all of our students, we have 5.2% is African American, 2.2% are Asian, 25.9% of our population is Hispanic. We have 0.3% Native American, 63.5% white, and we have 2.8% that are multi-race, non-Hispanic. So very diverse gateway city. We're still at the majority white, but 63% down from, which I believe, maybe 20 years ago we were 90% white. So our demographics have changed, and our population is changing, and that's what's great about the city of Peabody is that we're very welcoming, and we do everything we can to support our students and their families.
It's amazing the change that's occurred just since I've been on the council. How many migrant students do we have, Doctor?
We have just about 80 this year. We're anticipating some students coming in to kindergarten next year. We'll do the registration throughout the summer, but we had about 80 students this year. We started the year at 42, and we had different rounds where we received more students because they came in when the state consolidated their shelter system, and so Peabody received additional students throughout the year in December and January.
And are they all levels, K through 12?
Yes, they are all levels. We have a small number of students at the high school, a number of students at the Higgins. Primarily, they're elementary or younger. Most of the students, about half, I would say, of our students from the shelters are at the elementary level, mostly split between two schools, the McCarthy and the South. And we're looking to see, when we register our students, what's the best way for kindergarten, what's the best way to provide those students with an education. Originally, we just do it by geographic location. So there are some of the areas where they're living are within the McCarthy, some are within the South, and we'll look to see if that is a sustainable plan. About mid-year, we said we can't add any more to one of the schools, and we didn't. And we said this school's full right now, and we were able to provide transportation to a different elementary school.
And of the 80, how many are non-English speaking?
So it's interesting where the students have come from. Most of them are multi-language speakers, so they do speak some English. They're not wholly proficient. So a handful of the students are better than others, but we do see students who speak Haitian Creole, some speak Portuguese, some speak Spanish, because most of them are of Haitian descent, but when they came to the country through Venezuela or through Argentina, and so they picked up other, and some of them came through Brazil. So if they lived in Brazil for a little while, the kids do speak some Portuguese as well, and we do have a number of Portuguese-speaking staff members, so they're able to communicate in that language as well. But they're learning English, and they're getting better and better. And some of the parents are pretty proficient in English, and they're able to help. And the kids, the younger the student, the easier it is for them to learn English through the assimilation. The older the student is more difficult. As we get older, to learn another language is a little more challenging for us as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Gould. Councilor Peach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Dr. Vidala, I think Councilor Rossignol brought it up. I did notice the cut to the guidance counselor at the Carroll School, so that I'm happy to hear that job is posted, because there's over 600 kids at that school and a growing number with the center closing. So I think that's a vital position. Can you tell me, because it was my understanding the 11 positions we spoke of that were quote unquote cut from the budget by the school committee, those were, dream list, nice to have positions. How many positions like this one, like the guidance counselor, where someone has left, we didn't put it in the budget for financial reasons, but we're planning to hire that? Do we have a large number of those types of positions that kind of do need to be filled because they're necessary to operate the day-to-day?
Those positions have either been restored back into the budget. We did. There was a process where I think 6 of the positions were restored back into the budget, and then the other positions were identified for funding sources. So the only positions that won't be filled were, I believe there was an additional ELL position at the Carroll that we put in there, but then we decided that, that looking at the numbers, that they could do with 6 versus 7. And so I think at the end of the day, the positions that have been removed are not positions that were intended to be there this year. Any position that, you know, we were looking to not fill through attrition, we've reinstated.
Okay, thank you. That's comforting to hear. I would agree with my colleagues that I kind of fully expect the school committee to come back for a supplemental budget this year. It's just, I think everything costs more than we think it's going to. And I agree with Councilor Turco that if we're cutting things out of city services, education is not the place to start. So as I did on the city side, looking towards the next year, I don't foresee us to be in a better position than we are this year. I probably, if anything, it will get worse before it gets better again. And a lot of that rides on, you know, the lack of state funding that we've seen. It was a big hit to the city side of the budget and obviously to the school side. So do you, I know we've kind of tapped into these revolving accounts, which they kind of seem, I'm not familiar with them, but they seem to be sources of funding that maybe we haven't utilized in the past. Specifically the school lunch revolving account, I know you said didn't really have any money in it. I mean, last year or 2 years ago, we actually funded that account because it was in a deficit. Can you just speak to some of the different revenue or funding resources that your team has been able to identify so that maybe we just feel a little more comforted that next year, maybe even more of these positions that we're funding through the budget maybe can be shifted and that we have additional outside funding coming through grants or other revenue sources?
Thank you. That's a great question, and I appreciate you bringing it up. So for the past 4 fiscal years, we've had ESSER funding, and we've made a concerted effort to build up the reserves in those revolving accounts. I know that prior to that, they were used for a number of reasons, and any fee-generating program has a revolving account because you generate fees, you take the money in, and then you have to spend it on that program or expenses towards that program. So one is the cafeteria account, which we've talked about. Another account that we have is the athletics revolving account. So when students pay a user's fee, it goes into that account and it's used to offset. So some of the things it pays for is officials, police details, uniforms, things like that. We also, with especially that account, we like to try to build that up because if something big goes, like a scoreboard, or if the floor needs to be resurfaced in the gym, or a few years ago we redid the PA system at the stadium. All of those accounts come out of the revolving account. Well, I think we purchased Huddle out of that account as well. And so these are things that go back to our kids. And so we want to make sure that when times are good, we build those reserves up. And so, for example, this year we took a small amount of money and said we can restore teacher salary by paying $70,000 worth of coaches' salaries from the athletics revolving account. And that fees that are generated from user fees can go to coaches' pay, and that's completely an allowable use for that account. And it was an amount of money that we said $70,000 from that account is sustainable. We can do that year after year, but we can save $70,000 in the appropriate account and keep one of those teachers. So that was one of the examples. Pasos Avante is another revolving account that we have, and that's a fee-generating program that completely sustains itself, but hasn't paid utility fees or things like that. So we've decided to move over about $75,000 to the utility line to offset that, to free up some money. So those are some of the things that we were able to do. And then the other big one that we're utilizing is the early childhood integrated preschool. So we have an obligation to spend money on the special ed side to have this integrated preschool, and students with disabilities ages 3 and 4 go for free. And then we have role model peers that pay. And so we set fees, and that generates a little bit of revenue, and that's being used this year to offset 2 classrooms worth of staff, so 2 teachers and 4 paraprofessionals, and we had always spent, I think, 3 or 4 paraprofessionals out of it. So we're utilizing a lot of that account, so we'll have to look at the fee structure and to see if it's sustainable, but those are the real big accounts that we're really tapping into that generate revenue, and then we invest back into the programs.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And just through the discussions we've had on the city budget and now the school budget, I am feeling more confident about that new assistant auditor that we created. I think that will help us to maybe find a little bit more money, tighten things up where they could be, and maybe even, you know, open us up to some new grants that we'll be eligible for. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Peach. Any other councilors? Councilor Daigle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Dr. Vidala and the school committee for coming to this compromise and presenting this to us. Unfortunately, going towards the end of the meeting, most of my questions have been addressed by Councilors Turco, Rosignol, and Peach, especially the revolving accounts and how that works. I used to know the GLs by heart, but it's been a while. So thank you, and I know the school committee did make a motion to have those accounts audited in the fall, so I look forward to you sharing that with us. I guess my only last small question is the integrated preschool that's moving from the McCarthy to the center. Is that a permanent move or temporary, or we'll see how it goes?
So we would like that to be permanent. So we've talked to the staff. It's a big move for them to move. So the way that I envision it is when the center school is ready to come back online, we would like to use the main building for the center school elementary, and it would reduce from 3 classrooms per grade to 2 classrooms per grade. That's what we anticipate, and we would keep the integrated preschool. So a very similar structure to what the McCarthy school is now, and we would look through redistricting to be able to utilize the McCarthy as a full K-5 elementary school with 3 classrooms per grade, similar to what the center school had now. And we would look at, for example, Keys Drive is an area that is on the other side of, it's on the McCarthy side of 128, and students all take a bus. So those students get on the bus, it goes down to the end of their street, and it takes a left to go to the center. Right now, next year, they'll get on that bus, same kids, it'll go down and take a right, and it'll go to the McCarthy. We believe that neighborhood can sustain at the McCarthy, and we'll look at those lines. So when the center is ready to return, we would look at reducing the footprint, and it would also help with less students there to extend the life of the building.
Great, thank you. That's good to know. I do get asked a lot about that, so thank you for sharing, and no further questions.
Thank you, Councilor Daigle. Councilor Rosignol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. A second ago, you had mentioned fees. Through this budget process, you are not increasing any fees to the parents. Is that correct?
No, we haven't increased any fees just yet. This is something that, through the auditing process, we'll be looking for recommendations of where we can increase revenue. And, we're very cognizant of everything is going up, and so we don't want to put too much of a burden on the people with the kids in the schools and in these very needy programs. So, years ago we eliminated the parking fee and things like that because we wanted to be able to sustain that, and it wasn't really generating, a movable number that we felt like was necessary. But I think now is lean times. We have to look at every fee structure and make sure that, we have sustainable programs.
Thank you. So you're not looking at it for the 2024 budget, but its potential moving forward after that, correct?
For 26,
Okay.
yes. And we're looking at PASOs immediately, but I think most of the other ones we'll be looking. And you just jogged my memory. You asked a question about the assistant superintendent line being cut, and I just wanted to clarify that we do have an administrator in the district. It's a district-wide administrator that is going to retire this summer, has not made it public yet, and so that's a placeholder, and so it's not necessarily another revenue source, so I apologize for that. We're not cutting the assistant superintendent line. That is just a placeholder. There's another administrator that is retiring that will come offline, and when that does, the funding will be restored.
Perfect. And lastly, I just want to, through you, Mr. Chairman, to you, Dr. Vidala, the last couple of years, as Councilor Turco had mentioned earlier, since you've been on board and increasing your administrative staff, I really and truly appreciated your answer, and it really made me rethink about, because my biggest fear was a body in front of the students. And I think, and I still think, that having a teacher and an aide in front of a class and hands-on is paramount and is important. But I do appreciate your answer regarding pulling the assistant principals out of count, because that makes a tremendous amount of sense, and I applaud you for your efforts. And I appreciate your candor tonight, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Rossignol. Any other councilors? Seeing none, Dr. Vidal, just one additional question from me. You addressed it to some extent in your responses to Councilor Rossignol and Turco about the calculated risk. But if you could just do a little deeper dive on the health insurance calculated risk.
Yes, so that's that
just,
tier
just really
4.
what I'm looking for, Doctor, is what are the assumptions in this calculated risk? What are the things that need to happen to realize that savings?
One of the assumptions that was made was that there were a number of positions, a small number. We were looking at 11 originally. I think it ended up being 5 that will not be filled. So right there, that is a savings in our health insurance, and then being able to utilize some of those revolving accounts to pay for health insurance. And again, it's a calculated risk, and with a large employment, we have over 1,100 employees. So, we don't know exactly how many are going to take health insurance each year. We do budget as if they would all take it. So you take a calculated risk. Some people, you take their spouse's insurance. Some people don't take health insurance because they get it in other places. So this is a risk. It's something that we preferred to do rather than cutting any additional positions. And like I said, it's, ideally we'd have a $98 million budget, but that is a huge impact on the city, and we're part of the city, and we understand, that we play an important role. And so this was a risk that we're willing to take, and we'll provide an update each month moving forward on where we are and where we're trending, so that we can plan effectively.
Thank you. So which revolving funds would qualify to pay insurance costs?
So Passos Avante will be able to pay for all of their health insurance. Last year, I think we spent around, in the last fiscal year, I believe we spent around $200,000 on insurance from the appropriated budget. This year, we'll be able to utilize all of that through the Passos account. Similarly, when our cafeteria fund was in deficit, the city had to pick up all of those insurance as well. That's close to $300,000. We're able to fund that fully out of a healthy account. So that's definitely an allowable expenditure. All of the employees in the cafeteria are able to pay for their benefits now, and it's a self-sustaining program. Before, we were taking on some of that on the appropriated side because the program wasn't sustainable. So we'll look at that. We'll be able to utilize some money in the early childhood account, and we'll be able to use some of the money if people are paid out of the grant money that we're getting from the 104 a day through the shelter system. Those employees that are paid out of that, we can also fund their insurance out of that account as well. So there are some buckets there, and we'll do everything we can to make sure that we're coming in as close to budget as we can.
So those seem to all make sense in terms of being allowable. I just give me a ballpark on your confidence level I mean, everybody's dancing around this. We think you're going to come back for a supplemental, and a lot of it, I think, hinges on this line item. So,
yeah, I mean, my original estimates, I'd love to have the $2.5 million in those big three. We're putting about $1 million in it, but I do believe that we have some areas that I feel confident about. There are some areas I feel a little bit less confident about. I mean, it's a risk, but it's a calculated risk because we don't want to cut staff members and because we want to invest in education and continue to invest in education. So it's something that the mayor and I have talked about. None of us are comfortable with it, but we feel like this is the best budget that we can put forward given the constraints that we all have.
Well, you successfully avoided giving me a confidence level number. I just want to let the record show that I got a confidence level out of Mike Gingras a couple of years ago, and I was very proud of that, but I guess I'm not going to get it out of you this time. If there's no other, Councilor Rossignol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. So for the public school portion, we just went through an hour and a half of fantastic questions and correspondence with the superintendent. For $6 million for the Essex Tech budget, we get to basically have no communication, no discussion. We just get to pay it. So I find it fundamentally flawed that we have the opportunity, and I look at it as an opportunity, to have this discussion, to see where our kids are and our educational needs are for our student are, for our Peabody Public Schools. Yet, a portion of our students go to Essex Tech, and without a blink, we get to write a $6 million check without any recourse, without any oversight, without anything. So just remember that moving forward. And that is not directed to anybody in this room, because we all know what we have to deal with. But that's just I want the public to understand. We sat here for 2 nights, Tuesday until, I don't know, 10:30, 11 o'clock, whatever it was, going through the city side of the budget and literally asking questions and going through it, because it's the public's money. We've now sat here for, like I said, about an hour and a half going through the school budget. And without a blink, no matter what, we just have to automatically pay $5,900,000 to Essex Tech without any voice. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rosendahl. I'm not really in a position to respond to that, other than just as a point of information. You know, the city does have representation on that school committee that formulates the budget. So, you know, Beverly Ann Griffin Dunn is our representative, and she is actually the vice chair of that school committee. That's not to say it's not a valid point that you're making. It's analogous to the South Essex Sewage District, where we just get a big number and we all get a package in the mail that tells us what that giant number is going to be. But it's also a similar situation where we have representation on that body as well, with Mr. Langley being our representative in that case. So that's one of the perils of this intergovernmental charges, but certainly a valid point that you raise. If there's no other councilors, I would accept a motion on the education budget, and Councilor Gamache.
Yes, at this time, I'd
like
move to approve.
I'd like to vote the 2 elements of that budget separately, so the city education and the North Shore Essex Tech budget as separate line items.
I can't hear him.
You didn't.
I'll make a motion to approve the mayor's FY25 budget for the Peabody Public Schools for $94,577,540. So moved.
Councilors, you heard the motion from Councilor Rossignol on the motion. Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Rossignol,
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes.
Higgins.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Councilor Welton, could I ask you to make the motion for the North Shore Essex Tech?
Make a motion to approve the vocational assessment from the Essex Tech Vocational School in the amount of $5,973,521. So moved.
Councilors, you heard the motion from the enthusiastic motion from Councilor Rossignol. On the motion, seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Welton,
Yes.
Melville,
Yes.
Gamache,
Yes.
Peach,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Daigle,
Yes.
Higgins,
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
All right, councilors, that completes the work on the budget. We are going to take up a number of other matters here this evening. Before we proceed with those, I'm going to call for a quick recess.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
All right, councilors, we're going to resume. Next item on the agenda is item B, transfer of funds. Department payroll accounts, an amount of $317,300, revolving payroll and expense account, in an amount of $152,000, department expenses, in an amount of $1,384,150, for a total of $1,853,450. Mr. Gingras.
Thank you. At the end of last month, I went through and reviewed the accounts to try to determine areas where there was favorable balances and those that needed some help. And this is a culmination of that. I broke it out into 4 categories: the payroll accounts, the revolving funds, city budget expenses, and then the funding source coming from free cash. As you know, that by June 30th is the last time we can utilize free cash, and so this is an attempt to balance out the budget with those funds. In addition, I expect that I'll be back with this August meeting to transfer within budget lines after we close out, because I'm sure there's going to be some things that I didn't account for, or last minute water breaks or whatever. So I'm asking for this transfer at this time to at least get us to the 98% mark.
Questions from councilors? Seeing none, Councilor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to transfer from summary city budget revolving funds free cash, and in specific city budget payroll accounts, various funding accounts in the amount of $317,300, revolving funds, various funding accounts, $152,000, city budget expense accounts, $400,150, unreserved fund balance, $984,000, for a total of $1,853,450. 2 department payroll accounts in the amount of $317,300, revolving payroll and expense accounts, $152,000, department expenses, $1,384,150, for a total of $1,853,450. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Councilors, you heard the motion by Councilor Gould. On the motion, seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Rossignol,
Yes.
Welton,
Yes.
Melville,
Yes.
Gamache,
Yes.
Peach,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Daigle,
Yes.
Higgins,
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Next item on the agenda, item C, transfer of funds, CPC Cemetery Rest Curtis Very, in an amount of $5,800, CPC Cemetery Rest Old South, in an amount of $2,200, CPC Cemetery Rest Jacobs, in an amount of $16,700. Mr. Gingras.
Thank you. This is a request from Community Preservation to do some restoration at several cemeteries. It's all fencing replacement, and the money would be coming from the Historic Preservation account to those specific projects.
Questions from the council? Seeing none, Councilor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to take a moment before I ask for the motion just to acknowledge the great work that the Historic Society is doing in re-grooming, revamping all of these cemeteries. It's been an outstanding job, and it shows, if you, especially, we've talked about this, but especially the one in the corner of Allen's Lane and Washington Street. So next time you're driving by there, please check it out. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion from account number 270-0000-33022 in the amount of $24,700 CPC Historic Preservation, to account numbers 270-1811-58563-2024-000505, CPC Cemetery Rest Curtis Very, in the amount of $5,800 also, account number 270-1811585632024000394, the amount of $2,200. And finally, that was CPC Cemetery Rest Old South. And account number 270-1811585632024000516, in the amount of $16,700. CPC Cemetery Rest Jacobs. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Councilors hear the motion. Councilor Gould on the motion. Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Welton, Melville,
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes.
Higgins.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Next item on the agenda, item D, adoption of Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 22G and 22H. Mr. Chingris. Before you proceed on that, motion to receive late 3.
So moved.
Hear the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
This is a request to adopt that section of the law to enable the veteran transition for a relative during the benefit process.
Questions from councilors? Councilors, late 3 provides some clarification on this. We received this a while ago, and Ms. Antonellis had to get some direction from the Department of Revenue. We need to take action on this before the end of the fiscal year. We will probably also have to take action again at tax classification when we do other property tax exemptions. With that, Council Melville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my motion would be to accept Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, 22G, and 22H. Before I make that motion, Mr. Chairman, you had requested that we just read this into the record. And you'll see here that there's a summary from our veterans agent who's working with Representative Walsh on this. That there is they came across this through finding that there is a Peabody resident that is impacted by this that will receive that relief once we accept this into law. And as you see, it's a complicated issue that also involves like trusts and estates and trusts and so forth. So 22nd G, in the city or town that accepts this clause, real estate that is domicile of a person but is owned by a trustee, conservator, or other fiduciary for the person's benefit if the real estate would be eligible for exemption under clause 22nd, 22nd A, 22nd B, 22nd C, 22nd D, 22nd E, and 22nd F if the person were the owner of the real estate. 22nd H, real estate to the full amount of the taxable valuation of the real property of the surviving parents or guardians of soldiers and sailors, members of the National Guard, and veterans who during active duty suffered an injury or illness documented by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs of a branch of the armed services that is proximate cause of their death, or two, are missing in action with a presumptive finding of death as a result of active duty service as a member of the armed forces of the United States, provided, however, that the real estate shall be occupied by the surviving parents or guardians of the surviving parents or guardians domicile, and provided further that the surviving parents or guardians shall have been domiciled in the Commonwealth for the 5 consecutive years immediately before the date of the filing for an exemption pursuant to this clause, or the soldier or sailor, member of the National Guard or veteran was domiciled in the Commonwealth for not less than 6 months before entering service. Surviving parents or guardians eligible for the exemption pursuant to this clause shall be eligible regardless of when the soldier, sailor, member of the National Guard, or veteran died or became missing in action with a presumptive finding of death, provided, however, that the exemption shall be applied to the tax years beginning on or after January 1st, 2019. Such exemption shall be available until such time as the surviving parents or guardians are deceased. No real estate shall be so exempt which has been conveyed to the surviving parents or guardians to evade taxation. This clause shall take effect upon its acceptance by any city or town. So the motion would be to accept Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Sections 5, 22G, and 22H. So moved.
Councilors, you heard the motion from Councilor Melville on the motion. Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Rossignol.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Gould. Daigle.
Yes.
Higgins.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Councilors, the next item we're taking up is an item that was received last Tuesday as late 1. This is a request for transfer, CPC transfer. Mr. Gingras.
Thank you. Money was originally appropriated out to do the James Street Eco Campus, and this is
Mr. Gingras, this is the historic preservation scanning.
Oh, okay. It's my own request. So we scanned payroll records. We had originally had $50,000, and because of the indexing and the volume of pages was 140,000 pages above the estimate. We required additional funds, and this is a transfer from the historic preservation to fund the total of the scanning project for the $11,405.
Questions from councilors? Seeing none, Councilor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to transfer from account number 270-0000-33022, CPC Historic Preservation, the amount of $11,405.56, to account number 270-1811-58563-20230000000511, CPC Scanning Preservation Payroll Records, again in the amount of $11,405.56. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Councilors, you heard the motion from Councilor Gould. On the motion, seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Rossignol.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes.
Higgins.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Councilors, the next item we're going to address is another receipt that we already took in on Tuesday. This is another CPC request involving lake and pond restoration. Mr. Gingras.
Thank you. This is a return of funds for the lake and pond restoration, the original appropriation of the project that wasn't able to move forward because of the excessive costs of the soil removal. So this money will be returned back to the open space account.
Questions from councilors? Seeing none, Councilor Gould.
I have to put my hands on that late 2. Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Rossignol. I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to transfer from account number 270-01811-58562-2023-0392 in the amount of $219,675, Community Preservation Act, CPC Lake and Pond Restoration, to account number 270-0000-33021, again in the amount of $219,675, to account number Community Preservation Act, Open Space. So moved, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Jules.
Councilors, you heard the motion from Councilor Gould. On the motion, seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Rossignol.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes.
Higgins.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Councilors, the next item was something left on your desk and circulated earlier, late 5. Can I get a motion to receive late 5?
Motion to receive.
Councilor, you heard the motion from Councilor Rossignol. On the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. This is a CPC administrative issue regarding the James Street Eco Campus. Mr. Gingras.
Thank you. Again, this is original appropriation in November of 2021 for $645,000, and this will return the remaining balance of the funds of $372,095.43 back to the open space account.
Questions from councilors? Seeing none, Councilor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to transfer from account 270-1811-585-622022000504 in the amount of $372,095.43, which is account CPC James Street Echo Campus, to account number 270-0000-33021 in the amount of $372,095.43, categorized as CPC open space. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Councilors, you heard the motion from Councilor Gould. On the motion, seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Rossignol,
Yes.
Welton,
Yes.
Melville,
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes.
Higgins.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
And lastly, councilors, another item that was circulated today and left on your desk, late 4. Can I get a motion to receive?
So moved.
Councilors, you heard the motion from Councilor Rossignol. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. And this deals with a matter that Councilor Peach raised during the deliberations on the budget. Mr. Gingras. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, councilors. Good evening. This is an item. Thank you for bringing this forward. This is pertaining to a sunset clause for the 16th sergeant position for the Peabody Police Department that we voted on some months ago. We've had some discussions with the unions on this matter. I anticipate a great deal of promotions taking place this year as we add officers, hopefully to the ranks and some upcoming academies. I know we spoke about that on Thursday. I anticipate that the 16th sergeant will be an issue that will be discussed during union negotiations over the course of this year as the union contract expires on June 30th of 2025. And I'm asking that we continue with the 16th sergeant, push off the sunset date until June 30th, 2025 to allow for negotiations to take place. We have funded the 16th sergeant position for this year, but I do expect some rank movement over the course of the year that will unfold. And certainly by a year from now, I think you'll see things at a much better place in terms of promotions. So I just thought it would be good to allow for this to continue 1 year and the sunset clause be extended until June 30th, 2025.
Questions from the council? Seeing none, Councilor Peach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to amend Section 23-16, Article 2, Police Department, entitled Establishment and Composition, by removing Section C as it currently states and replacing it with the Section C. The number of sergeants authorized in paragraph A shall revert to 15 unless the City Council votes to maintain 16 positions on or before July 1, 2025. So moved. Motion to adopt and advertise.
Motion to draft and advertise.
Draft and advertise. Thank you.
Councilors, you heard the motion by Councilor Peach. On the motion, seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Rossignol,
Yes.
Welton,
Yes.
Melville,
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes.
Higgins.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Councilors, before we adjourn, just a reminder, we need to report this out. We're going to do that right now, so Please don't go far. We're just going to take a minute here to switch seats and resume momentarily. At this time, I'd accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Councilors, hear the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. The recording is stopped. We are adjourned.
Recording in progress.
Good evening, councilors. I call to order the special city council meeting. The only thing on our agenda this evening is a report of finance. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. Finance Committee, sitting as the Committee of the Whole, met on June 18th, recessed, and met again early this evening on June 20th. All councilors were present for the first meeting. All councilors were present for the second meeting with the exception of Councilor Manning Martin. The city budget, including the school portion of the budget, was presented by His Honor the Mayor, the Director of Finance, and the school superintendent. Department heads and two members of the school committee were available to help address questions from the City Council, of which there were many. Each major section of the budget was voted individually. These were general government, public safety, public service, council on aging, human services, excluding council on aging, culture and recreation, debt service, employee benefits, education, and Essex North Shore Agriculture and Technical School assessment, and all such motions passed. The Council on Aging budget was voted separately from the Human Services budget because of Councilor Melville's recusal. The aggregation of those individual motions is the full fiscal year 2025 budget for the City of Peabody, which I now put to the Council for a final vote with the following motion. Move that the City Council of the City of Peabody approve and adopt the fiscal year 2025 City of Peabody budget as submitted by His Honor the Mayor in the amount of $197,352,196 as follows: total personnel services $149,074,630, total operating expenses $48,277,566, for a total of $197,352,196. So moved.
Councilors, you heard the motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Welton,
Yes.
Melville,
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Daigle,
Yes.
Higgins,
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Councilor McGinn.
Budgets for the water and sewer enterprise and the recreation enterprise were presented by the city auditor and reviewed by the committee. Councilors' questions regarding the enterprises were addressed by the administration and the enterprise staff. A motion was made to reduce the skating rink personnel budget by $50,000, and that motion prevailed. Motions were made to approve each enterprise individually, and both motions passed. I now bring those two motions forward for a final vote. Move that in accordance with the provisions of Section 53F and a half of Chapter 44 of the Mass General Law, the City Council of the City of Peabody approve and adopt for fiscal year 2025 water and sewer enterprise budget as submitted by His Honor the Mayor in the amount of $21,646,000 as follows: total personnel services $4,489,461, and total operating expenses $17,156,539, for a total of $21,646,000. So moved.
Councilors, you heard the motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Welton,
Yes.
Melville,
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Daigle,
Yes.
Higgins,
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Councilor McGinn.
The next motion related to the enterprises, move that in accordance with the provisions of Section 53F and a half of Chapter 44 of the Mass General Laws, the City Council of the City of Peabody approve and adopt fiscal year 2025 recreation enterprise, which includes the McVan O'Keefe Memorial Skating Rink and Meadow Golf Club budgets as submitted by His Honor the Mayor and further amended by the City Council in the amount of $2,844,400 as follows: total personnel services $1,334,177, and total operating expenses $1,510,223, for a total of $2,844,400. So moved.
Councilors, you heard the motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Welton,
Yes.
Melville,
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Daigle,
Yes.
Higgins,
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Counselor McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to thank the mayor and his staff for the preparation that went into the budget and how it was presented. I'd specifically like to thank the Director of Finance and the auditor, Ms. Martin and Mr. Gingras, for their command of the data, which enables them to provide thorough answers to all councilor questions. Thanks again. Great job. There were 3 other items on the agenda. The first was a transfer request needed to adjust various fiscal 24 budget payroll and expense accounts between departments, along with the revolving and free cash balance to close fiscal 2024 operating budget and the Endicott Bridge repairs. This request was presented by the Director of Finance and resulted in the following motion. Move to approve the transfer request. Salary from budget, city budget revolving funds to free cash, city budget payroll accounts, $317,300, revolving funds, $152,000, city budget expense accounts, $400,150, unreserved fund balance, $984,000, for a total of $1,853,450 to department payroll accounts in an amount of $317,300, revolving payroll and expense accounts in an amount of $152,000, and department expense in an amount of $1,384,150, for a total amount of $1,853,450, and all accounts are in accordance with the detail provided attached to the communication from His Honor the Mayor dated June 3rd, 2024. So moved.
Councilors, you heard the motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Welton,
Yes.
Melville,
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Daigle,
Yes.
Higgins,
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Counselor McGinn.
Next item on the agenda was a CPC transfer request. This request was presented by the Director of Finance and resulted in the following motion. Move to approve transfer from account number 270-00003302 to CPC Historic Preservation, amount of $24,700, to account number 270-1811 58563-2024-000500, CPC Cemetery Rest Curtis Very, in an amount of $1,500, and account number 270-1811-58563-2024-000394, CPC Cemetery Rest Old South, in an amount of $2,200, and account number 270-1811-58563-2024-000516, CPC Cemetery Rest Jacobs, in an amount of $16,700. So moved.
Councilors, you heard the motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Welton,
Yes.
Melville,
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Daigle,
Yes.
Higgins,
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Counselor McGinn.
Next item on the agenda was a request to adopt the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 22G and 22H. Clause 22G permits veterans and their surviving spouses to be eligible for property tax exemption under certain circumstances. Clause 22H permits surviving parents of deceased veterans to be eligible for property tax exemption under certain circumstances. Late Communication 3 was provided as supplemental information. Move to receive late 3.
You heard the motion to receive late 3. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. This request was presented to us by the Director of Finance and resulted in the following motion by Councilor Melville. Move to adopt the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 22G and 22H. So moved.
Councilors, you heard the motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Rossignol,
Yes.
Welton,
Yes.
Melville,
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Daigle,
Yes.
Higgins,
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. Next item was late communication 1, which was received by the committee on June 18th and considered by the committee on June 20th. Move to receive late communication 1. So moved.
You heard the motion to receive late 1. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor McGinn.
Late communication 1 was a CPC transfer request. This was a request presented by the Director of Finance and resulted in the following motion by Councilor Gould. Move to approve transfer request from account number 270-0000-33022, CPC Historic Preservation, amount of $11,405.56, to account number 270-1811-5856-3-2023-0000000511, CPC Scanning Preservation Payroll Records, an amount of $11,405.56. So moved.
Councilors, you heard the motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Rossignol,
Yes.
Welton,
Yes.
Melville,
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes.
Higgins.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. Late communication 2 was received by the committee on June 8th and considered by the committee on June 20th. I move to receive late communication 2. So moved.
You heard the motion to receive late 2. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. Late 2 was another CPC transfer request. This request was presented by the Director of Finance, Mr. Gingras, and resulted in the following motion from Councilor Gould. Move to approve transfer request from account number 270-01811-5856-2023-0392, Community Preservation Act, CPC Lake and Pond Restoration, an amount of $219,675 to account number 270-000033021, Community Preservation Act, Open Space, in an amount of $219,675. So moved.
Councilors, you heard the motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Rossignol,
Yes.
Welton,
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes.
Higgins.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. Late communication 5 was received by the committee on June 20th and considered by the committee on June 20th. Move to receive late communication 5. So moved.
Councilors, you heard the motion to receive late 5. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. Late 5 was another CPC transfer request, an administrative matter to return some money to the open space account. This request was presented by the Director of Finance, Mr. Gingras, and resulted in the following motion by Councilor Gould. Move to approve transfer request from account number 270-11811-5856-2022-000504, CPC James Street Eco Campus, in an amount of $372,095.43 to account number 270-000033021, CPC Open Space, in an amount of $372,095.43. So moved.
Councilors, you heard the motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Rossignol,
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes.
Higgins.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. Late Communication 4 was received by the committee on June 20th and considered by the committee on June 20th. Move to receive late 4. So moved.
Councilors, you heard the motion to receive late 4. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. Late 4 was a police department matter brought up during the budget sessions related to the number of sergeants that were determined to be, that matter was determined to be time sensitive. The request was presented by the mayor and resulted in the following motion by Councilor Peach. Move to amend Section 23-16, Article 2, Police Department, entitled Establishment and Composition. Section C is hereby amended by deleting the number of sergeants authorized in paragraph A shall revert to 15 unless the City Council votes to maintain 16 positions on or before July 1, 2024, and replace with as follows. Section C, the number of sergeants authorized in paragraph A shall revert to 15 unless the City Council votes to maintain 16 positions on or before July 1, 2025. And the motion is to draft and advertise. So moved.
Councilors, you heard the motion to draft and advertise. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Rossignol,
Yes.
Welton,
Yes.
Melville,
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Daigle,
Yes.
Higgins,
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. That completes the reporter committee, and I would move to adjourn.
You heard the motion. We are adjourned.
Recording stopped.